Imagine for a moment a world shimmering with vibrant life, where every intricate detail of existence, from the delicate patterns of a spider's web to the colossal migrations of the buffalo, held profound lessons. Now picture an age long before the first scroll was inked, before the earliest alphabet was etched into stone tablets, an era when the vast ocean of human knowledge flowed not through written words, but through the very fabric of daily life itself. How did entire civilizations, rich in culture, complex in social structure, and masterful in their crafts, manage to transmit everything they knew across countless generations without libraries, without textbooks, or even without formal schools as we understand them today? This isn't just a historical question. It's a captivating historical mystery that challenges every assumption we hold about how knowledge is learned, preserved, and passed down. This profound inquiry leads us directly into the heart of what we call the lost art of teaching without words, education in pre-written cultures. It's an exploration into an educational paradigm so fundamentally different from our own, it almost feels like peering into an alien world. We are so accustomed to the written word as the cornerstone of learning that it's almost impossible to conceive of a sophisticated society functioning, thriving, and evolving without it. Yet for tens of thousands of years, humanity did precisely that. Our journey today will peel back the layers of this ancient enigma, revealing the ingenious, deeply integrated, and often awe-inspiring methods by which complex information, vital skills, and profound wisdom were instilled directly into the minds, bodies, and spirits of people living in vibrant, pre-literate societies. Think of the intricate knowledge required to navigate by the stars across vast oceans, to domesticate wild animals, to cultivate bountiful harvests from challenging landscapes, or to forge intricate tools out of raw ore. All of this and so much more was learned and preserved without a single written document. Get ready to discover a teaching paradigm so profound, so organic, and so intrinsically woven into the rhythm of life itself that it might just redefine what we consider true education. This isn't just about ancient history. It's about rediscovering fundamental truths about human cognition, community, and the surprising resilience of knowledge when it's embodied rather than merely recorded. As we delve into the silent curriculum, the ceremonial classrooms, and the living libraries of these ancient worlds, you might find yourself looking at our own modern educational systems with a fresh perspective, wondering what vital lessons we might have forgotten along the way. Stay with us as we unlock the secrets of humanity's original and arguably most holistic form of learning. Before alphabets and scrolls, before any formal instruction was conceived, the most fundamental way knowledge was transmitted was through what we call the silent curriculum. How, for instance, did a young person learn the intricate art of shaping a flint into a razor-sharp tool, or track elusive prey through dense forests long before written manuals existed? The answer lies in the profound power of observational learning, where children and apprentices absorbed knowledge simply by watching and mimicking their elders. This wasn't a passive process of mere witnessing. Instead, it was an incredibly active engagement, a constant dance of observation, replication, and refinement. Imagine a child in a Stone Age village, not sitting in a classroom, but right there beside their parent, day in and day out. They would see the precise way a mother gathered herbs, noting which plants were edible and which were poisonous, observing the exact manner she pounded grains or wove baskets. They would see a father meticulously flaking stone to create a spearhead, feeling the rhythm, hearing the clicks and cracks, watching the angle of each strike. This wasn't a one-time lesson. It was a continuous, immersive experience repeated countless times over years. Through this constant exposure, the young learner's brain was actively mapping patterns, predicting outcomes, and internalizing complex sequences of actions. Their hands and bodies were learning alongside their minds, fostering a deep, intuitive understanding that transcended mere intellectual comprehension. This direct, sensory-rich engagement allowed knowledge to become ingrained at a cellular level. Think about how a modern-day chef learns to cook from a master, not just by reading recipes, but by watching their hands, feeling the texture of ingredients, smelling the aromas, and tasting the nuances. This kind of learning transcends verbal instructions, embedding the how and why through tactile reinforcement. For pre-written cultures, this observational learning was the bedrock. It created a shared understanding of practical skills, but also, crucially, forged a collective worldview. If everyone learned to hunt in a similar way, or process food in a shared communal rhythm, these practices became deeply embedded components of their cultural identity, shaping their relationship with their environment, their community, and even their understanding of the spiritual world. It was a holistic form of education, laying a profound groundwork for entire societies, where lessons were breathed in with the air, rather than read from a page. Building on that foundation of silent observation, the first pillar that truly cemented learning in pre-written cultures was the deep, immersive bond of apprenticeship and direct experience. Imagine a young hunter, perhaps just 10 or 12 years old, not reading about tracking deer in a dusty book, but out there in the crisp morning air, kneeling beside their mentor, feeling the damp earth beneath their fingers. Their education wasn't confined to a classroom. It unfolded in the rustle of leaves, the subtle snap of a twig, the faint scent carried on the wind. They learned to distinguish the fresh print of a deer from an older one, to interpret the pattern of disturbed grass as a sign of recent passage, to instinctively understand which way the wind carried their scent. This wasn't theoretical knowledge. It was visceral, immediate, and utterly practical. The young apprentice would mimic the way their mentor held the spear, the crouch they adopted, the patience they exhibited for hours on end. They would learn not just the mechanics of the hunt, but the deep respect for the animal, the land, and the rhythm of nature. Every element of the environment became a part of the lesson. The quality of the light, the texture of the soil, the sounds of distant birds warning of a predator. This direct, hands-on engagement ensured practical mastery, an intuitive grasp of complex skills that went far beyond mere intellectual understanding. There was no room for error in these lessons. A misplaced footstep, a missed sign, could mean the difference between a successful hunt and an empty stomach for the entire community. This experiential learning transcended simple memorization. It was about developing an instinct, a second nature, for the task at hand. Think of a blacksmith learning to work metal. They didn't just study diagrams. They felt the heat of the forge, heard the ring of the hammer on the anvil, smelled the burning coal, and watched the subtle changes in the metal as it reached the perfect temperature. Through thousands of repetitions, guided by the seasoned hands and watchful eyes of their master, the knowledge became embedded in their muscles, their senses, their very being. This kind of learning fostered an incredible level of precision and adaptability, allowing individuals to react instinctively to ever-changing real-world scenarios. It was a fluid, adaptive education system that truly prepared individuals for the challenges and demands of their daily lives, ensuring that skills were not just learned, but mastered and refined over a lifetime of practical application. While direct experience was paramount, another equally powerful pillar supported the vast edifice of pre-written knowledge, storytelling, and rich oral traditions. Now, you might be thinking, but wait, stories use words, so how is that without words teaching? And that's a fair question. The key lies in understanding the profound difference between knowledge conveyed through a living, breathing narrative passed from person to person, and knowledge abstracted onto a page. In pre-written cultures, stories were far more than entertainment. They were intricate, multi-layered mnemonic devices, meticulously crafted vessels for an entire civilization's accumulated wisdom. Imagine sitting around a fire, the flickering light casting dancing shadows as a revered elder begins to speak. They aren't just reciting facts, they are weaving a tapestry of sound, rhythm, and emotion. Within the thrilling sagas of heroes and tricksters, the solemn myths of creation, or the recounting of ancestral deeds, lay embedded ethical codes, guidelines for behavior, and complex social structures. Historical events crucial to understanding tribal identity and alliances were not dry dates and names but dramatic narratives that brought the past to life. Even scientific observations like the cycles of the moon, the migratory patterns of animals, or the properties of medicinal plants were often disguised within the adventures of legendary figures or the unfolding of natural phenomena in mythic tales. Practical wisdom, from the best time to plant certain crops to the art of conflict resolution, found its home in fables and cautionary tales. These oral traditions were, in essence, living encyclopedias. They were not static texts but dynamic, communal acts of remembrance and transmission. The power of rhyme, rhythm, alliteration, and specific phrasing helped ensure accuracy over generations. Think of the complex genealogies that had to be memorized or the intricate legal precedents that had to be recalled precisely, especially in societies with no written laws. The very act of telling and retelling, often in specific ceremonial contexts or during long journeys, reinforced the collective memory of the community. It wasn't just one person remembering, it was the entire group acting as a safeguard, correcting small deviations, and ensuring that the core message and details remained intact. This meticulous accuracy wasn't driven by academic rigor as we understand it today, but by cultural survival. A story that taught the location of a vital water source, or the signs of a dangerous predator, or the proper way to conduct a sacred ceremony carried immense weight. Errors could be catastrophic. Therefore, the skilled orator was not just a performer but a guardian of knowledge, trained from a young age in the art of precise recall and eloquent delivery. The cultural continuity of the group, their shared understanding of their world, their place within it, and their connection to their ancestors, all hinged on the vibrant, unbroken chain of oral tradition. These stories were not just heard, they were experienced, absorbed, and lived, shaping the very fabric of individual and collective identity. Beyond the power of story and hands-on learning, a third, equally profound pillar of education in pre-written cultures was the immersive world of ritual and ceremony. It is easy for us, looking back, to see these elaborate events as mere celebrations, religious practices, or social gatherings. But in truth, they were perhaps the most potent forms of pedagogy, carefully orchestrated lessons designed to impart profound community values, define individual responsibilities, and solidify spiritual beliefs in ways that could never be achieved through simple verbal instruction. Imagine a young person on the cusp of adulthood participating in a coming-of-age ceremony. This wasn't just a party, it was a multi-sensory curriculum. Every element was laden with meaning and designed to teach. The specific movements of a dance might encode a tribe's migration history or the proper way to hunt. The songs sung could recount the deeds of ancestors, instilling pride and a sense of continuity. The symbolic actions, perhaps involving a journey, an ordeal, or the sharing of special foods, were not random. they represented the shedding of old identities and the adoption of new roles within the community. The very structure of the event, its timing, its participants, all served to convey complex lessons about belonging, sacrifice, and the interconnectedness of life. These rituals created deep emotional and psychological imprints because they engaged the whole person. Unlike a lecture where information is processed primarily through the intellect, a ceremony involved the body, the emotions, and the spirit. The rhythmic drumming, the shared vulnerability of a communal rite, the visual spectacle of costumes and masks, the taste of ceremonial foods, and even the smells of smoke or incense, all contributed to an experience that was intensely memorable and transformative. Through this holistic engagement, abstract concepts like courage, reciprocity, or reverence for the land became tangible, deeply felt realities. Furthermore, rituals seamlessly reinforced social norms. They provided a powerful framework for understanding what was expected of each individual. A marriage ceremony, for instance, didn't just unite two people. It educated the entire community on the roles and responsibilities of spouses, the importance of family lineage, and the communal support structures surrounding a new household. Funerary rites taught about grief, loss, the afterlife, and the continuity of the community despite individual departures. These weren't lessons delivered in a classroom, but lived experiences that shaped individual and collective identity from the deepest levels of being. The repetitive nature of many rituals, performed annually or at significant life stages, ensured that these crucial lessons were not forgotten but continually reinforced and re-experienced, binding generations together in a shared understanding of their world and their place within it. Just as rituals immersed individuals in learning, pre-written cultures also understood the profound power of embodied knowledge and kinesthetic learning. Consider for a moment the hands of a master potter as they instinctively shape the clay, their fingers feeling every nuance coaxing form from raw earth without conscious thought. Or imagine a dancer who communicates intricate stories and complex emotions through pure movement, their body becoming a living narrative. In societies without written instruction, information wasn't just stored in the mind. It was deeply ingrained in the body, a living archive of skill and understanding forged through repetitive action and constant physical experience. This was largely due to the immense value placed on embodied knowledge, where learning was not an abstract exercise but a deeply physical one. Mastering a craft like weaving, hunting, or farming didn't come from reading a manual. It came from countless hours of doing. The hands remembered the precise tension needed for a fishing net. The legs knew the optimal stride for tracking game, and the entire body learned the rhythm of the seasons through direct participation. This kind of learning fostered an intuitive grasp, a knowing that transcended mere intellectual comprehension. It was a form of intelligence that modern education often overlooks, favoring cognitive processing over the wisdom of the body. Kinesthetic learning, which involves learning through physical activity and experience, was central to skill acquisition and the development of intuition. Think of children in these societies learning to navigate treacherous terrain, not from maps, but by repeatedly clambering over rocks, testing their balance, and feeling the ground beneath their feet. Every scrape and stumble became a lesson, etched into their muscle memory. Similarly, traditional dances were not just expressions of culture. They were often practical lessons in coordination, teamwork, and even survival techniques, subtly teaching the optimal movements for hunting, gathering, or defending the community. These physical challenges pushed individuals to develop not only strength and agility, but also problem-solving skills and resilience, all integrated within the context of their daily lives. This emphasis on embodied knowledge extended beyond practical skills into deeper forms of understanding. For instance, a community's connection to the land was not just a theoretical concept. It was felt through the toil of cultivation, the rhythm of walking through familiar territories, and the sensation of harvesting food directly from the earth. This physical engagement fostered a profound respect and understanding of their environment, creating a bond that abstract lessons could never replicate. The body became a vessel for cultural memory, transmitting techniques and wisdom across generations in a way that truly permeated every aspect of existence, creating individuals who are intimately connected to their world through every fiber of their being. Flowing from the wisdom gained through the body, pre-written cultures instinctively understood that the natural world itself was the most vital teacher. For them, the very landscape became a living textbook, an ever-present source of critical knowledge essential for survival. Imagine a hunter-gatherer society where learning to read the subtle signs of weather patterns, predicting the movements of prey, or discerning the edibility of plants was not just useful, but absolutely crucial for the community's well-being. This deep environmental literacy was never taught through abstract lectures or diagrams in a classroom. Instead, it was absorbed through constant, direct interaction with nature. Children grew up guided by their elders who pointed out the faintest tracks, explained the song of a particular bird, or demonstrated how to interpret the shifts in wind direction. It was a continuous, immersive education. This wasn't a passive form of learning. It was highly experiential and collaborative. From a very young age, individuals were encouraged to actively explore their surroundings, observe minute details, and share their empirical findings with others. A child might learn about the migration patterns of a certain animal by spending weeks tracking it with an older family member, noting its feeding habits and preferred resting spots. They would then internalize this knowledge not as isolated facts, but as part of a dynamic, interconnected system. The understanding of plant cycles, for instance, wasn't just about knowing when to harvest. It involved recognizing the subtle changes in foliage, the presence of specific insects, and the nuanced interplay of sunlight and soil that indicated ripeness. Every piece of information was contextual, deeply rooted in the physical environment. More profoundly, this understanding of the natural world transcended mere practical skill. It imbued daily life with a profound spiritual connection. Indigenous cultures around the globe often viewed the land, animals, and plants not as resources to be exploited, but as kin, as sentient beings with whom they shared a reciprocal relationship. The act of hunting or gathering was often accompanied by rituals of respect and gratitude, acknowledging the life given to sustain their own. This spiritual reverence for nature was intrinsically linked to their ecological understanding, fostering a sustainable way of living that honored the balance of the ecosystem. It was a holistic education that taught not just how to survive, but how to thrive in harmony with the intricate web of life. The wisdom of the seasons, the language of the animals, and the secrets of the plants were all whispered through direct experience, making the earth itself the ultimate, ever-present instructor. Following this profound ecological understanding, we consider how early societies nurtured vital social skills within their youngest members. How did children learn the complex rules of their society and develop crucial social abilities long before any formal instruction? The answer lies in play. Games, role-playing, and imaginative activities were never merely recreation in these cultures. They were integral, sophisticated parts of the learning process. Through play, children naturally mimicked adult tasks, rehearsing future responsibilities and solidifying their understanding of community roles. They might build miniature shelters, hunt imaginary prey using toy spears, or tend to symbolic crops, each action subtly embedding practical knowledge and reinforcing cultural expectations. This wasn't about being told what to do, it was about experiencing and internalizing it through joyful simulation. Beyond practical skills, play was the crucible for social intelligence. Engaging in group games fostered cooperation and negotiation as children learned to share, take turns, and resolve conflicts organically. Think of a group of children collaborating to build a dam in a stream or acting out a communal harvest. These seemingly simple activities required intricate teamwork, communication without many words, and an intuitive understanding of group dynamics. Problem-solving skills were sharpened as they navigated the challenges inherent in their games, whether figuring out how to balance a structure or outwit an imaginary opponent. Furthermore, play provided a safe space for emotional regulation and expression. Children could explore different emotions, roles, and boundaries within a low-stakes environment, learning empathy and understanding social cues through direct interaction with their peers. They enacted scenarios of sadness, joy, anger, and fear, processing these feelings in a way that prepared them for the emotional complexities of adult life. This form of experiential learning was continuous, adapting to the child's developmental stage. As children grew, their games became more complex, mirroring the increasing demands and responsibilities of their transition into adulthood. The shift from individual imaginative play to highly structured group activities subtly prepared them for their eventual roles as contributing members of the community. Before any elder ever uttered a formal lesson on social conduct or responsibility, children had already absorbed these principles through the joyful, iterative process of play. It was a holistic method that ensured not just the transmission of skills, but the cultivation of well-adjusted, socially adept individuals who understood their place within the intricate web of their society. This foundation of social competence, built on the seemingly simple act of play, was essential for the harmony and resilience of the entire community. Beyond the dynamic learning found in childhood play, another cornerstone of traditional education was the profound wisdom held by a community's elders. In pre-written cultures, these individuals were far more than just senior citizens. They were revered as living libraries, walking encyclopedias of collective knowledge and experience. Their minds were the repositories for the history, the intricate laws, the genealogies, and the accumulated practical wisdom of countless generations. When we consider the depth of information they contained, it truly reshapes our modern understanding of authority and expertise. Teaching, in this context, often meant direct consultation with these venerable figures. A young person seeking to understand the proper way to conduct a ceremony, the precise season for a particular harvest, or the nuanced history of their tribe would turn not to books but to an elder. The elder would share stories, demonstrate techniques with practiced hands, and provide guidance that was rooted not just in theory, but in a lifetime of observation and direct engagement with their environment and community. Imagine the scene, a circle of attentive listeners hanging on every word, absorbing lessons that were interwoven with personal anecdotes and the weight of ancestral experience. This was education as a deeply personal, intimate exchange, far removed from the impersonal dissemination of information we often see today. The role of elders extended beyond mere instruction. They were the primary source of authoritative information, the ultimate arbiters of tradition, and the guardians of cultural continuity. Their presence ensured that the lessons learned from the land, from past mistakes, and from successful innovations were not lost to time. They were the bridge between the ancestors and the future generations, meticulously transmitting the knowledge that allowed their communities to survive and thrive. This continuous flow of wisdom from elder to child ensured that each new generation inherited not just a set of skills, but a profound understanding of their identity, their place in the world, and their responsibilities to both the past and the future. They didn't just teach facts, they instilled a worldview, a moral compass, and a sense of belonging that was vital for societal cohesion. Beyond the spoken and observed lessons, pre-written cultures possessed another powerful teaching tool: art and symbolism. These weren't just decorative elements, they were profound pedagogical messages, conveying complex ideas and historical narratives without the need for written language. Consider the striking images painted on cave walls by ancient humans, or the intricate carvings on rocks and ceremonial objects across various cultures. These visual forms went far beyond mere aesthetics. They served as a vital means of communication and education, making abstract concepts concrete and memorable. Symbols, motifs, and rich visual narratives were not only beautiful but also deeply purposeful. They encoded a vast array of information, from the lineage of a tribe and its heroic ancestors to the intricate laws governing communal life and profound spiritual beliefs. For example, a specific animal depicted in a carving might represent a tribal totem, embodying certain virtues or historical events associated with that group. A geometric pattern on a pot could allude to a creation myth or a set of moral guidelines. These visual languages were understood by everyone within the community, acting as a constant, silent reminder of their shared heritage and values. They were a powerful way to reinforce collective identity and ensure that complex cultural knowledge was passed down accurately through generations. These visual aids functioned as powerful mnemonic devices, helping individuals remember vast amounts of information. Imagine a child learning the stories of their people not just by hearing them, but by seeing them represented in vivid, enduring images. These images served as triggers for memory, bringing entire narratives and their associated lessons to mind. They were cultural touchstones, points of reference that everyone in the community recognized and understood, fostering a shared understanding that transcended individual experience. When a community gathered around a sacred rock carving or a painted ceremonial mask, they weren't just observing art. They were engaging with a living repository of knowledge, being reminded of their history, their duties, and their place within the cosmic order. This deep connection to visual communication ensured that the essential elements of their culture remained vibrant and accessible to all, providing a foundational visual framework for continuous learning and cultural cohesion. Just as art and symbolism provided a visual framework for learning, music and rhythm offered another powerful and often overlooked pillar of education in pre-written cultures. The rhythmic patterns and melodies of songs were far more than mere entertainment. They were intricate vessels for encoding vast amounts of information. Imagine an ancient community where historical genealogies, the precise names and locations of ancestors stretching back for dozens of generations, were not written down but embedded within a complex song cycle. Or consider the detailed knowledge of medicinal plants, their properties, preparation methods, and specific uses, all woven into melodies that could be easily remembered and passed down. Music served as an extraordinary auditory mnemonic device, a tool that profoundly aided recall and ensured the accurate transmission of complex texts and vital information. The very structure of a song, its repeating refrains, its specific melodic contours, and its inherent rhythm, acted as a scaffold for memory. This wasn't simply about memorizing lyrics. It was about internalizing patterns that made it almost impossible to forget a crucial detail or misremember a sequence. Think of a long epic poem or a foundational myth. Its sheer length and complexity could be overwhelming to transmit verbatim, but when set to music, the melody and rhythm provided an anchor, helping the reciters to stay on track and ensuring fidelity over countless retellings. This was a sophisticated system for data storage and retrieval, predating any form of written record. Beyond the pure transmission of information, collective singing and dancing fostered profound social cohesion and a shared sense of identity. When an entire community sang the same songs, danced the same dances, and performed the same rituals, they were not just participating in a cultural event. They were actively reinforcing their collective bonds and shared heritage. These communal musical experiences transcended individual understanding, creating a powerful feeling of unity and belonging. The shared rhythm of a drum, the synchronized steps of a dance, or the harmonies of a communal chant bound people together, transforming individual participants into a collective entity. This shared experience solidified communal values, instilled a sense of purpose, and reinforced the intricate social fabric that held these societies together. In essence, music was not just heard, it was felt, embodied, and lived, making it an indispensable pedagogical tool for reinforcing both knowledge and community. Beyond the collective harmonies and rhythmic movements, another, equally profound pillar of learning in pre-written cultures was the deliberate cultivation of silence and focused observation. This wasn't merely the absence of sound, it was an active state of being, a conscious decision to quiet the external clamor and internal chatter to allow for a heightened awareness of the world. Imagine a young apprentice sitting still by a riverbank, not speaking, not interacting, but simply watching the waters flow, noticing the subtle shifts in current, the way light plays on the surface, or the precise moment a fish breaks the surface. This deep, sustained observation went far beyond casual looking. It was a form of profound engagement, a way of absorbing information through every available sense without the filter of language. This emphasis on silent observation extended to both the social and natural environments. In many communities, children were raised with a natural inclination towards quiet attentiveness, learning to pick up on nuanced social cues like body language, facial expressions, and unspoken expectations. These were not taught through direct instruction but through careful, sustained watching of their elders and peers. Similarly, understanding the natural world, the subtle shifts in weather, the intricate patterns of animal behavior, the minute changes in plant life, demanded an extraordinary capacity for observation. A hunter might spend hours tracking an animal, not just following tracks, but reading the wind's direction, recognizing the faintest scent, and hearing the softest rustle of leaves. This level of environmental literacy, crucial for survival, was honed through countless hours of quiet, undistracted attention. The ability to simply be and observe without interruption was considered a crucial pathway to deeper understanding and intuitive insight. In a world without books or formal lectures, direct experience and keen perception were the primary teachers. Intuition, often dismissed in modern education, was highly valued, seen as the culmination of vast amounts of observed data processed subconsciously. Such cultures understood that true knowledge often emerges not from being told, but from being present and noticing. This deep quiet allowed for patterns to emerge, connections to be made, and insights to surface that words might have obscured or oversimplified. It was a recognition that some truths are best apprehended through direct, unmediated experience, rather than through verbal explanation. This skill of profound observation and comfortable silence is something largely lost in our noisy, constantly stimulated modern world. We are perpetually bombarded by information, always connected, always processing. The very idea of sitting quietly, doing nothing but observing, can feel alien or unproductive. Yet for pre-written cultures, this practice was fundamental to developing wisdom, fostering a deep connection to their environment, and honing practical skills. It speaks to a different valuation of time and presence, where waiting and watching were not passive acts, but powerful forms of learning, integral to survival and the development of a nuanced understanding of their complex world. How then did complex knowledge, vital for survival and cultural identity, remain accurate over countless generations without the fixed anchor of written words? This is one of the most compelling historical mysteries, revealing a profound human capacity for memory and meticulous transmission. The answer lies in sophisticated, multi-layered strategies that transformed individual recall into a robust communal archive. It was a system built not on singular genius, but on collective responsibility and ingrained practice. One fundamental method was the use of repetitive chanting and rhythmic performance. Imagine entire historical narratives, genealogies, or medicinal recipes encoded within songs, poems, or epics. The very rhythm and rhyme acted as powerful mnemonic devices, making the information easier to memorize and recall with precision. Like a musical score, the structure itself provided a framework, ensuring that if a single word or phrase was altered, the disruption to the rhythm would be immediately noticeable. This wasn't merely rote memorization, it was an act of embodying the knowledge, allowing it to become deeply embedded within the body and mind of the reciter. Each performance was a live recreation, a dynamic reaffirmation of the collective past and shared wisdom. Furthermore, specific performance contexts were crucial for ensuring fidelity. Knowledge wasn't just casually passed around, it was often recited or enacted during particular ceremonies, rituals, or gatherings. These contexts served as built-in quality control mechanisms. A sacred story might only be told during a specific season, or a detailed ancestral lineage recounted only during a formal tribal council. The solemnity of the occasion, the presence of an attentive audience, and the potential for immediate correction if an error was made, all contributed to the rigorous accuracy of the transmission. It transformed knowledge transfer from a private exchange into a public trust, where errors could literally have dire consequences, reinforcing the need for absolute precision. Perhaps the most powerful safeguard was communal validation. The collective memory acted as a living, breathing library, where multiple individuals held overlapping pieces of the same knowledge. If one person recited a story or shared a piece of important information, others present, who also knew the material, would act as checks and balances. Any deviation, omission, or addition would likely be noticed and corrected on the spot. This created a self-correcting system, where the community itself was the ultimate arbiter of truth and accuracy. Imagine 100 minds acting as interconnected hard drives, constantly cross-referencing and validating the data. This shared responsibility for knowledge meant that its accuracy wasn't contingent on a single memory or a single life. It was distributed, resilient, and continuously reinforced through communal engagement. This collective ownership of their history and wisdom was a powerful force, ensuring continuity and preventing significant deviations from the established truths of their world. How then did this intricate form of education, so different from our text-based learning, actually shape the human mind? The cognitive impact was profound, cultivating abilities that we, in our modern world, often struggle to develop. Imagine a mind not reliant on external storage, but a living, breathing archive of information. This constant engagement with memory, from recounting epic stories with perfect recall to navigating complex genealogies, fostered highly developed memory skills that were central to survival and social cohesion. It wasn't just about remembering facts, it was about the active process of recall, constantly strengthening neural pathways and refining the brain's capacity to store and retrieve vast amounts of information with remarkable precision. This went far beyond mere rote memorization. It built a deep, structured understanding, much like how a master musician doesn't just remember notes, but embodies the entire composition. Beyond memory, the pervasive emphasis on teaching without words cultivated acute observational abilities. When knowledge is primarily transmitted through demonstration and shared experience, the learner must become an expert observer. Think of a hunter tracking subtle signs on the forest floor, a potter discerning the perfect consistency of clay by feel, or a healer recognizing a plant's properties by its scent and texture. These were not skills learned from a manual, but honed through intense focus on detail, pattern recognition, and sensory discrimination. This kind of learning sharpened the senses, encouraging an intuitive understanding of the interconnectedness of things. It fostered an ability to read the world, to pick up on subtle cues that might be completely overlooked by someone accustomed to explicit verbal or written instructions. The environment itself became an information-rich text, waiting to be deciphered by a finely tuned mind. This observational acuity, combined with constant hands-on learning and direct experience, nurtured an intuitive understanding of complex systems. The world wasn't broken down into discrete subjects, but experienced holistically. A master builder didn't just know how to join two pieces of wood. They understood the properties of the wood itself, the forces of nature it would withstand, and its relationship to the surrounding environment and the community it served. This intuitive grasp meant understanding how different elements interacted, how causes led to effects, and how to adapt to changing circumstances based on deep, ingrained knowledge rather than abstract theories. It built a resilience and adaptability that stemmed from a profound, embodied understanding of how the world truly worked. Crucially, this cognitive landscape fostered practical intelligence and sophisticated problem-solving skills that were deeply integrated with daily life. There was no separation between school and real-world problems. Every challenge, from finding food to building shelter, from resolving disputes to navigating vast distances, was a test of applied knowledge and ingenuity. Learning was always relevant and immediately applicable. This constant cycle of observation, practice, and problem-solving cultivated minds that were not just repositories of information, but agile tools for navigating and shaping their environment. They could innovate within traditional frameworks, finding solutions to new challenges by drawing on a deep well of lived experience and an intuitive grasp of natural principles, demonstrating a form of intelligence that was flexible, resourceful, and profoundly connected to the human experience. This profound way of learning, so deeply intertwined with direct experience, naturally led to a different kind of knowledge itself, one less reliant on pure abstraction. How then did understanding work when there weren't written concepts, formal definitions, or mathematical symbols to pin down ideas? The answer lies in a world where knowledge was almost always grounded in concrete experience and practical application. It wasn't that abstract thought was entirely absent, but rather that it emerged from and was continually tested against the tangible world. Consider how numbers might have been understood. Instead of an abstract numeral like 5 floating in conceptual space, 5 might have been intrinsically linked to 5 fingers, 5 stones, or 5 deer. Counting wasn't a detached mental exercise, but a physical act tied directly to the objects being enumerated. This direct connection to the physical world meant that mathematical concepts, while perhaps not formalized into equations, were deeply understood through their real-world manifestations. Similarly, concepts were understood through analogy, metaphor, and lived experience rather than through formal, dictionary-style definitions. For example, the idea of justice might be understood through specific stories of communal arbitration, or through the balanced give and take observed in nature, rather than through a philosophical treatise. This fostered a kind of understanding that was incredibly robust, intuitive, and immediately applicable because it was always tethered to something observable and real. This directness meant that learning wasn't about memorizing isolated facts or theories, but about comprehending the intricate relationships between things. Knowledge wasn't compartmentalized, it was holistic. A plant wasn't just a botanical specimen. It was food, medicine, shelter, and a spiritual entity all at once, understood through its interactions with the soil, the sun, the animals, and the human community. This integrated perspective, born from continuous engagement with the environment, cultivated a deep ecological fluency. It wasn't about knowing isolated bits of information, but about perceiving patterns, anticipating consequences, and understanding the delicate balance that sustained life. This intimate, interwoven understanding made knowledge incredibly durable and relevant, as it was constantly reinforced by direct sensory input and practical outcomes. Moreover, this practical approach to knowledge fostered a profound sense of self-reliance and adaptability. When you didn't have textbooks to consult or libraries to visit, your understanding of the world had to be internalized and constantly refined through experience. This meant that problem-solving was less about applying pre-existing formulas and more about creative improvisation based on deep, intuitive insights gained from direct interaction with the environment. If a new challenge arose, the solution wasn't found by looking it up, but by drawing upon a rich tapestry of analogous experiences, subtle observations, and an innate understanding of how things work. This encouraged a dynamic, flexible intelligence, one that was perfectly suited to navigating a world where conditions were constantly shifting and explicit instructions were rare. This profound understanding, rooted in direct experience rather than abstract concepts, fostered a unique educational environment where the entire community functioned as a classroom. Education wasn't a separate activity confined to specific institutions or set hours. It was seamlessly woven into the very fabric of daily life. Imagine a world where every interaction, every task, and every shared meal presented a potential learning opportunity. There were no school bells signaling the start of a lesson because the lesson was always ongoing, always present. Children didn't go to school, they lived their education. They learned about sustenance by helping forage or tend to crops, understanding seasonal cycles not from a textbook, but by observing the plants themselves. They mastered craftsmanship by watching elders skillfully weave, carve, or build, then gradually participating, their hands guided by experienced fingers. Social norms and ethics weren't taught from a rule book. They were absorbed through participation in community gatherings, observing how disputes were resolved, and understanding the give and take of communal living. This pervasive nature of learning meant that knowledge transfer was continuous, flowing naturally between generations and across all aspects of life. This holistic approach fostered lifelong learning from birth to old age. Learning wasn't something you completed by a certain age. It was a journey that evolved with each stage of life. A young person might learn the basics of hunting, but a seasoned elder would refine that knowledge with years of nuanced observation, understanding the subtle shifts in animal behavior or weather patterns that only come with profound experience. Women shared ancestral knowledge of plants and healing, passed down through generations, constantly adding new observations and insights. Every success, every challenge, every new discovery by one member became a potential lesson for all, shared and integrated into the collective wisdom. The community itself became the ultimate pedagogical tool, offering a rich, dynamic, and endlessly varied curriculum. Mentorship wasn't a formal program. It was an organic relationship that unfolded as individuals worked side by side, shared stories around the fire, and participated in rituals together. Collective problem solving wasn't an academic exercise. It was a practical necessity, with the entire group pooling their knowledge and skills to overcome obstacles. If a new dwelling needed to be built, everyone contributed, learning about materials, design, and teamwork in the process. If resources became scarce, the community worked together to innovate, drawing on collective memory and creative solutions. This constant interaction and shared purpose ensured that learning was always relevant, immediately applicable, and deeply rewarding, reinforcing the bonds that held the community together. This profound understanding of learning, deeply rooted in the community as classroom, directly leads us to another fascinating aspect: the seamless integration of mind, body, and spirit in pre-written cultures. Unlike much of modern education, which often compartmentalizes learning into distinct academic subjects, separating intellectual pursuits from physical activities or spiritual development, ancient pedagogical approaches embraced a holistic view. In these societies, knowledge was never merely intellectual. It was deeply embodied and imbued with profound spiritual significance, weaving itself into every fiber of existence. Consider the craftsperson. Their skill wasn't just about the mechanics of shaping a tool or weaving a basket. It was also about understanding the natural materials, respecting the spirit of the wood or the plant, and performing the task with a meditative focus that connected them to their work on a deeper level. The physical act of creation became a pathway to intellectual understanding and spiritual alignment. Similarly, a hunter's knowledge extended beyond tracking and killing. It encompassed an intimate understanding of the ecosystem, a profound respect for the prey, and often a spiritual connection to the land and its creatures. The act of hunting was a physical challenge, an intellectual puzzle, and a spiritual ritual all rolled into one. This meant that learning engaged the whole person, not just their cognitive abilities. When a child learned to dance, they weren't just acquiring physical coordination. They were also learning the stories embedded in the movements, the history of their people, and their place within the cosmic order. The rhythm connected them to their ancestors, the collective movement reinforced community bonds, and the emotions expressed through the dance tapped into their spiritual essence. Every part of their being was involved, creating a far more comprehensive and resonant learning experience than typically found in settings that prioritize rote memorization or abstract theory. This holistic approach fostered a profound understanding of oneself and one's place in the cosmos. There was no artificial division between sacred and secular knowledge. Practical skills, social norms, historical narratives, and spiritual beliefs were all intertwined, each reinforcing and informing the others. A young person learning about the medicinal properties of plants might also learn the ceremonies associated with their harvest, the stories of the spirits that resided within them, and the ethical responsibilities that came with their use. This comprehensive integration ensured that knowledge wasn't just about facts. It was about wisdom, interconnectedness, and a deep sense of belonging to a larger, living universe. This holistic approach to learning presents a profound mystery for us today. How do we even begin to reconstruct the educational practices of societies that left behind no written records? Indeed, one of the greatest challenges in studying this lost art of teaching without words lies precisely in the very nature of its subject matter. We are attempting to understand something that, by definition, produced no textual evidence. Imagine trying to piece together a complex painting using only the echoes of its colors and the faint scent of its canvas. That's akin to the task facing historians and anthropologists. Our understanding of these ancient pedagogical methods isn't derived from textbooks or lesson plans unearthed from millennia ago. Instead, it relies on a delicate and meticulous jigsaw puzzle pieced together from indirect sources. One crucial source is archaeological findings. Think about the careful analysis of ancient tools, the wear patterns on artifacts, or the layout of dwelling places. These material remains can offer clues about how skills were practiced and possibly taught. For instance, the presence of smaller, simpler versions of tools alongside adult ones might suggest a learning process where children practiced on less complex models. Or the consistent artistry in pottery across generations could indicate a standardized teaching method transmitted through observation and apprenticeship. Yet, these are often inferences requiring careful interpretation and always open to new theories. Another vital window into this past is anthropological studies of surviving oral cultures. While no modern society is exactly like its ancient counterparts, studying contemporary indigenous communities that have maintained oral traditions provides invaluable insights. Observing how knowledge is passed down today through storytelling, ritual, direct instruction, and play offers an analogical framework for understanding how similar processes might have unfolded in the distant past. These studies highlight the intricate social structures, mnemonic devices, and communal responsibilities that keep knowledge alive without the crutch of writing. However, we must always exercise caution here, avoiding the trap of assuming that modern oral cultures are exact replicas of ancient ones. Each society is unique, shaped by its own environment, history, and beliefs. Ultimately, reconstructing these ancient educational practices demands careful interpretation and a healthy dose of humility. We are dealing with shadows and echoes, not clear blueprints. Our modern biases, including our emphasis on literacy as the primary mode of knowledge acquisition, can inadvertently color our understanding. We might undervalue the sophistication of non-textual learning or misinterpret evidence through a contemporary lens. The ongoing nature of discovery means that our understanding is constantly evolving, with new archaeological finds or fresh anthropological insights potentially reshaping our theories. It's a field that requires patience, interdisciplinary collaboration, and a profound respect for the ingenuity of human cultures that thrived and passed on wisdom in ways that, to our text-centric minds, often remain a beautiful and enduring mystery. This holistic approach to learning presents a profound mystery for us today. How do we even begin to reconstruct the educational practices of societies that left behind no written records? Indeed, one of the greatest challenges in studying this lost art of teaching without words lies precisely in the very nature of its subject matter. We are attempting to understand something that, by definition, produced no textual evidence. Imagine trying to piece together a complex painting using only the echoes of its colors and the faint scent of its canvas. That's akin to the task facing historians and anthropologists. Our understanding of these ancient pedagogical methods isn't derived from textbooks or lesson plans unearthed from millennia ago. Instead, it relies on a delicate and meticulous jigsaw puzzle pieced together from indirect sources. One crucial source is archaeological findings. Think about the careful analysis of ancient tools, the wear patterns on artifacts, or the layout of dwelling places. These material remains can offer clues about how skills were practiced and possibly taught. For instance, the presence of smaller, simpler versions of tools alongside adult ones might suggest a learning process where children practiced on less complex models. Or the consistent artistry in pottery across generations could indicate a standardized teaching method transmitted through observation and apprenticeship. Yet, these are often inferences requiring careful interpretation and always open to new theories. Another vital window into this past is anthropological studies of surviving oral cultures. While no modern society is exactly like its ancient counterparts, Studying contemporary indigenous communities that have maintained oral traditions provides invaluable insights. Observing how knowledge is passed down today through storytelling, ritual, direct instruction, and play offers an analogical framework for understanding how similar processes might have unfolded in the distant past. These studies highlight the intricate social structures, mnemonic devices, and communal responsibilities that keep knowledge alive without the crutch of writing. However, we must always exercise caution here, avoiding the trap of assuming that modern oral cultures are exact replicas of ancient ones. Each society is unique, shaped by its own environment, history, and beliefs. Ultimately, reconstructing these ancient educational practices demands careful interpretation and a healthy dose of humility. We are dealing with shadows and echoes, not clear blueprints. Our modern biases, including our emphasis on literacy as the primary mode of knowledge acquisition, can inadvertently color our understanding. We might undervalue the sophistication of non-textual learning or misinterpret evidence through a contemporary lens. The ongoing nature of discovery means that our understanding is constantly evolving, with new archaeological finds or fresh anthropological insights potentially reshaping our theories. It's a field that requires patience, interdisciplinary collaboration, and a profound respect for the ingenuity of human cultures that thrived and passed on wisdom in ways that, to our text-centric minds, often remain a beautiful and enduring mystery. This journey to understand pre-written cultures leads us to a fascinating question. How was intelligence truly defined and valued in societies where abstract reasoning and rote memorization weren't the primary measures of worth? It certainly wasn't about excelling on written tests or reciting long lists of facts. Instead, intelligence was deeply rooted in practical wisdom, the ability to apply knowledge effectively in real-world situations. A truly intelligent person was someone who could navigate their environment with skill, whether that meant knowing the most fertile hunting grounds, understanding the subtle shifts in weather, or identifying medicinal plants. Their intelligence was an active, lived experience, directly contributing to the survival and well-being of their community. Moreover, social acumen played an enormous role in determining perceived intelligence. In tightly knit communities where cooperation was paramount, the intelligent individual was someone who could foster harmonious relationships, mediate disputes, and understand the intricate social dynamics at play. This wasn't about being charismatic in a superficial way, but about possessing a deep, intuitive grasp of human nature and the ability to contribute positively to the collective good. Adaptability was another hallmark of intelligence. Environments could shift dramatically, resources could become scarce, and unexpected challenges constantly arose. The intelligent person was the one who could innovate, find new solutions, and adjust strategies in the face of adversity, demonstrating a flexible and resilient mind. The ability to contribute effectively to the community was perhaps the ultimate measure. This wasn't just about physical labor, but about bringing specific skills, insights, and wisdom that benefited everyone. Whether it was a master storyteller who preserved history, a skilled artisan who crafted essential tools, or a wise elder who provided guidance, their intelligence was valued for its tangible impact on the lives of others. A person's intelligence was not an abstract concept to be debated, but a demonstrable capacity to solve problems, sustain life, and maintain the delicate balance of their world. This profound understanding of their surroundings, combined with their practical skills and social grace, painted a picture of intelligence that was holistic, deeply integrated with daily life, and fundamentally different from our modern, often narrow definitions. Even with the advent of writing, many of these ancient pedagogical principles persisted and continue to influence learning today, often without us even realizing it. Think about it, the value of hands-on experience, the power of storytelling, and the importance of mentorship are not outdated concepts. They are timeless educational truths that echo from these ancient practices, even in our incredibly technologically advanced world. Consider how much we still rely on practical, hands-on learning. From medical students practicing surgery on models to aspiring chefs perfecting their craft in a bustling kitchen, direct experience remains paramount. This isn't just about repetition, it's about building muscle memory, developing intuition, and understanding the nuances that words alone can never convey. This echoes the ancient apprenticeship model, where skills were absorbed through constant exposure and active participation, embedding knowledge not just in the mind, but in the very fiber of one's being. The modern emphasis on internships, laboratories, and practical projects all harks back to this fundamental lost art approach. Then there is the enduring power of storytelling. Long before novels and films, narratives were the primary vehicle for transmitting history, morality, and complex information. Today, whether it's a gripping documentary, a captivating podcast, or even a well-told anecdote in a classroom, stories continue to grab our attention and embed information in a way that dry facts rarely can. They create emotional connections, make abstract concepts relatable, and provide a framework for understanding the world. This is why historians still weave tales, scientists explain discoveries with narrative arcs, and educators use real-world scenarios to illustrate principles. The human brain is wired for stories, and pre-written cultures understood this profoundly, making storytelling an indispensable tool for knowledge transfer across generations. And what about mentorship? Even in a world overflowing with information, the guidance of an experienced individual remains invaluable. Whether it's a career coach, a seasoned professional guiding a newcomer, or an academic advisor shaping a student's research, the one-on-one relationship of a mentor and mentee provides personalized insight, real-time feedback, and encouragement that online courses or textbooks cannot replicate. This direct transmission of wisdom, tailored to the individual's needs and challenges, directly mirrors the role of elders and skilled practitioners in ancient societies, who served as living libraries and practical guides, ensuring that hard-won knowledge was passed down with care and precision. These enduring practices remind us that while the tools of education may change, the fundamental ways humans learn and transmit knowledge often remain constant. Beyond these universal truths, there's another fascinating dimension to knowledge transmission in pre-written cultures: the specialized roles and wisdom often passed down through different gender lines. In many societies, men and women had distinct yet equally vital responsibilities in subsistence, social organization, and spiritual life. This division of labor naturally led to parallel educational pathways, ensuring the transmission of gender-specific skills and knowledge that were crucial for the community's survival and overall balance. Think about the women, for example, whose expertise was often centered around the camp, the hearth, and the immediate environment. Their education might have involved intricate knowledge of edible and medicinal plants, which berries were safe to eat, how to prepare herbs for healing, or where to find specific roots and fungi. They mastered the art of food preservation, from drying meats to grinding grains and making pottery for storage. The skills of crafting textiles, weaving baskets, and preparing animal hides were also typically passed down from mother to daughter, aunt to niece. This wasn't just about domestic chores, it was vital knowledge for sustaining life, maintaining health, and providing comfort and warmth for the entire group. They were the primary educators in early childhood, instilling social norms, language, and the foundations of community understanding. Meanwhile, the education of men often focused on skills necessary for hunting, fishing, warfare, and long-distance travel. Young boys would learn tracking techniques, how to craft and use weapons, the movements of game animals, and the subtle signs of changing weather patterns crucial for a successful hunt. They might also learn the art of navigation, how to read the stars, and the geography of distant territories for trade or defense. The construction of shelters, the making of tools beyond domestic implements, and the strategic planning of group movements were often part of their specialized curriculum. Even ritualistic knowledge and the preservation of certain oral histories might have been gender-specific, ensuring that distinct aspects of cultural heritage were carefully guarded and transmitted through designated lines. These parallel educational systems were not about superiority or inferiority. They were about necessity and efficiency. Each gender held a unique and complementary body of knowledge, passed down through direct mentorship, observation, and specialized rituals or activities that reinforced their respective roles. This ensured that the collective wisdom of the community was preserved and continuously updated across all its facets. The survival of the group depended on both sets of skills being meticulously transmitted, creating a holistic and interconnected system where every piece of knowledge contributed to the greater whole, reflecting a deep understanding of balance and interdependence within the society. Thinking about these distinct, gender-specific paths inevitably leads us to a larger question. How does this ancient pedagogy stack up against our modern educational systems? The contrast is quite stark, and it offers us a fascinating lens through which to reflect on what we might have gained, and perhaps what we have inadvertently set aside in our relentless pursuit of progress. Today, our education systems often spotlight individual achievement, meticulously measured through standardized testing, and an overwhelming emphasis on abstract, theoretical knowledge. Think about it. A student might excel at calculus without ever truly understanding how those mathematical principles apply to the movement of a river or the construction of a simple bridge. Success is frequently defined by test scores, grades, and entry into prestigious institutions, fostering a competitive environment where individual accolades often overshadow collaborative effort. In stark opposition, the educational methods of pre-written cultures gravitated toward communal learning, practical application, and holistic development. The learning process was deeply embedded within the community, fostering a sense of shared responsibility and collective growth rather than individual competition. Children weren't just learning isolated facts, they were actively participating in the daily life of their community, absorbing skills and knowledge through direct engagement and practical necessity. There were no standardized tests to gauge their hunting prowess or their knowledge of medicinal plants. Their competence was proven through their ability to contribute meaningfully to the group's survival and well-being. This wasn't about memorizing theories. It was about internalizing skills through repetitive action, observation, and direct experience, leading to an intuitive and deeply ingrained understanding of their world. Consider the notion of holistic development. Modern education, while striving for well-rounded individuals, often compartmentalizes learning into distinct subjects and often overlooks the profound connection between mind, body, and spirit. We have physical education classes and perhaps art or music, but these are often seen as separate from academic rigor. In ancient societies, learning was an integrated experience. A ritual wasn't just a spiritual exercise, it was also a lesson in history, social structure, and community values, often involving physical movement and emotional engagement. The learning of a craft wasn't just about manual skill, it was about patience, precision, and understanding the natural properties of materials, all of which contributed to a balanced character. Knowledge was seen as something to be embodied, lived, and experienced with all the senses, fostering a comprehensive understanding of oneself and one's place within the cosmic order. This comparison isn't about romanticizing the past or denigrating the present. It's about acknowledging the different priorities and outcomes of these educational philosophies. While our modern systems have undeniably brought us incredible advancements in science, technology, and global connectivity, they have also, perhaps, created a disconnect between abstract knowledge and practical wisdom. We've gained immense capabilities in information processing and rapid communication, but at what cost to our observational skills, our communal bonds, or our intuitive understanding of the natural world? The lessons from these ancient ways prompt us to consider whether there are elements of their integrated, community-centered, and practical approaches that we could reweave into the fabric of our contemporary learning environments, creating a more balanced and deeply human educational experience for future generations. Moving beyond the specific differences in learning styles, our journey into pre-written cultures illuminates another profound concept: the intergenerational contract of knowledge. This wasn't merely a casual passing down of information. It was a deep, unspoken agreement, a sacred covenant woven into the very fabric of society. Each generation bore a profound responsibility, a solemn obligation to transmit knowledge accurately and completely to the next. This wasn't just about ensuring individual survival or prosperity. It was about the survival and flourishing of the entire group, fostering an intense, almost spiritual, sense of stewardship over their cultural heritage. Imagine a world where the collective memory was the ultimate library and every elder a living book. The accuracy of tribal histories, the efficacy of hunting techniques, the precise knowledge of medicinal plants, the complex lineage of families, and the intricate details of spiritual practices were all held collectively, not in static texts, but in the minds and practices of the people. This meant that the failure to transmit knowledge accurately wasn't just a personal setback. It was a communal catastrophe, potentially threatening the very existence of the group. This inherent trust and communal obligation created a powerful feedback loop. Learners were motivated not just by personal gain, but by the understanding that their mastery directly contributed to the well-being and continuity of their family, clan, and tribe. This concept of shared responsibility fundamentally reshaped the learning process. It transformed education from an individual pursuit into a communal endeavor, a collective act of preservation and perpetuation. Think about the meticulous care taken when passing down complex oral narratives, where even a slight deviation could alter fundamental truths or prophecies. The community often served as a living archive and a critical peer review system. Stories would be recounted, ceremonies performed, and skills demonstrated, often with multiple individuals present, subtly correcting or reinforcing the accuracy of the transmission. This communal validation was a powerful safeguard against distortion or loss, ensuring fidelity across countless generations. Consider the implications of this deep sense of stewardship. It created a society where learning was never truly finished, where the acquisition of knowledge was a lifelong journey intertwined with the responsibility of teaching. Elders, even in their twilight years, remained active participants in this contract, serving as invaluable repositories of wisdom and experience. They were the guardians of the past, ensuring its accurate delivery to the future, reinforcing the idea that knowledge was a shared inheritance, a precious gift to be nurtured and passed on without compromise. This profound sense of collective responsibility for knowledge stands in stark contrast to our often individualized, competitive approach to learning today, prompting us to reflect on the immense value of fostering a deep sense of shared purpose and communal ownership in our educational endeavors. Moving beyond the profound intergenerational contract of knowledge, we must also consider how moral and ethical frameworks were instilled in societies without written laws or formal codes of conduct. This was a realm where the abstract concept of right and wrong was not taught as a set of rigid rules, but absorbed through every fiber of community life, becoming an intrinsic part of one's identity and belonging. Ethical principles were woven into the very fabric of daily existence, transmitted through powerful narrative examples, reinforced by communal enforcement of norms, and deeply embedded by the transformative impact of ritual. Imagine a young person growing up steeped in stories of their ancestors, tales of heroes and tricksters, of great deeds and cautionary failures. These narratives were more than entertainment. They were living case studies, illustrating the consequences of honesty versus deceit, generosity versus selfishness, courage versus cowardice. When a storyteller recounted how a selfish act led to famine, or how a brave decision saved the entire village, these weren't just abstract lessons. They were vivid moral exemplars that resonated deeply. Children learned by hearing these examples repeated, observing the reactions of their elders, and seeing how these ethics played out in everyday interactions, slowly internalizing what it meant to be a good person within their specific cultural context. Communal enforcement of norms also played a crucial role. In societies where individual actions had immediate and visible consequences for the entire group, peer pressure and social cohesion were incredibly powerful forces. A transgression wasn't just a personal failing, it was a wound to the community, and the collective response was often swift and clear. This might manifest as public shaming, temporary exclusion from activities, or subtle social cues that conveyed disapproval. Conversely, acts of kindness, courage, or wisdom were met with communal praise and recognition, reinforcing desired behaviors. This constant feedback loop, driven by the collective gaze and shared values, meant that ethical boundaries were not merely theoretical. They were constantly being defined and reinforced in real time, fostering a profound sense of personal responsibility toward the group. Perhaps most powerfully, ritual and ceremony served as immersive ethical classrooms. Think of a coming-of-age ceremony, where a young individual undergoes trials designed to test their resilience, courage, and adherence to community values. These rituals were not just rites of passage, they were deeply symbolic enactments of ethical principles, using music, dance, symbols, and shared experience to convey complex moral truths. Through participation, the individual didn't just learn about ethics, they experienced them, internalizing the community's values on a visceral level. The shared emotional intensity of these events forged powerful bonds and instilled a sense of sacred obligation to uphold the moral framework of the society, making ethics less about obedience to rules and more about a deeply felt commitment to one's role within the larger collective. Building on the profound ethical tapestry woven through pre-written societies, their approach to learning also embraced a far greater sensory richness than our modern, often screen-based education. Imagine knowledge being absorbed not just by listening or reading, but by fully engaging all five senses: sight, sound, touch, taste, and even smell. This wasn't merely a supplementary teaching method. It was the very foundation of how understanding was built, creating a learning experience that was deeply immersive and multi-dimensional. Consider, for instance, how a child might learn about different types of wood. In a modern classroom, they might see pictures, read descriptions, or listen to a lecture. In a pre-written culture, that child would likely be in the forest, feeling the rough bark of an oak and the smooth surface of a birch, hearing the distinct crunch of leaves underfoot, smelling the earthy aroma of damp soil, and perhaps even tasting the sap of certain trees. They would learn which wood was best for tools by physically shaping it, feeling its resistance, and noting the sound it made as it was worked. This direct, tangible interaction with the natural world meant that knowledge was not abstract. It was rooted in concrete, sensory experience, making it far more memorable and intuitively understood. This holistic engagement of the senses fostered deeper memory encoding. When multiple senses are involved in the learning process, the brain forms more robust and interconnected pathways, making information easier to recall and apply. Think of the difference between reading about a ceremony and actually participating in one. The sights of vibrant costumes, the sounds of rhythmic drumming, the feeling of shared movement in a dance, the taste of ceremonial foods, and even the smell of smoke from a sacred fire would create a powerful, unforgettable experience. These sensory cues would serve as anchors for the embedded lessons, ensuring that the wisdom, history, and values conveyed during the ritual were not easily forgotten. Moreover, this multi-sensory approach cultivated a profound, intuitive understanding of the world. A hunter wasn't just taught to identify tracks. They learned to feel the subtle vibrations of animals in the ground, to smell the faint scent of a distant deer, to hear the slight rustle of leaves that signaled movement, and to see the almost invisible signs left behind. This wasn't explicit instruction as we know it. It was an apprenticeship of the senses, honing perceptual skills to an extraordinary degree. This continuous, immersive learning environment meant that knowledge was not just intellectual. It was embodied, lived, and experienced, fostering a deep connection to their environment and a nuanced grasp of its intricacies. Such a rich, multi-dimensional learning experience allowed individuals to thrive in their complex worlds, building wisdom that extended far beyond mere facts or figures. So, what can we, in our modern, technology-saturated world, learn from this seemingly lost art of teaching without words? A great deal, it turns out. Perhaps the most profound lesson is the enduring power of embodied learning, where knowledge isn't just mentally processed but physically experienced. Think about adding more hands-on activities to classrooms, letting children build, create, and explore with their bodies as much as with their minds. This isn't just for younger students. It extends to all levels of education, from vocational training that mirrors ancient apprenticeships to higher education that incorporates practical, real-world application. Imagine university courses that prioritize fieldwork, laboratory experiments, or community engagement over purely theoretical lectures. When learning engages our bodies, it resonates deeper, fostering a more intuitive and lasting understanding that transcends rote memorization. Another invaluable principle we can rediscover is the foundational role of storytelling. In an age of information overload, narratives offer a powerful way to organize, communicate, and retain complex ideas. Modern educators can leverage this by integrating compelling stories into their curriculum, whether it's historical accounts, scientific discoveries framed as adventures, or ethical dilemmas presented through character-driven plots. This isn't just about making lessons entertaining. It's about tapping into a fundamental human capacity for narrative reasoning. Stories embed information within emotional and contextual frameworks, making it more relatable, memorable, and applicable to real-world situations. We could see a resurgence in oral presentations, debates, and even collaborative storytelling projects as core educational tools, shifting from passive information consumption to active narrative creation and engagement. Furthermore, the concept of the entire community as a classroom offers a radical departure from our current, often isolated, educational institutions. Instead of solely relying on school buildings, we could foster deeper connections between schools and their surrounding communities. This means more mentorship programs, internships, and service learning opportunities where students learn not just from teachers, but from local artisans, scientists, elder community members, and naturalists. It's about recognizing that learning happens everywhere and that wisdom resides in diverse corners of our society. Building stronger community partnerships could provide richer, more relevant learning experiences, fostering civic responsibility and a deeper understanding of real-world challenges. This holistic, community-integrated approach ensures that education is not a separate sphere of life but an intrinsic part of social fabric, preparing individuals not just for jobs but for meaningful participation in their communities. Finally, the profound environmental literacy cultivated in pre-written cultures provides a critical lesson for our ecologically challenged world. Rather than teaching about nature solely from textbooks, modern education can re-emphasize direct immersion in natural environments. This could involve outdoor classrooms, nature-based learning programs, and curricula focused on local ecosystems. By fostering a direct sensory relationship with the natural world, we can cultivate not just knowledge, but also a deep sense of connection, respect, and responsibility towards our planet. This kind of experiential environmental education moves beyond abstract concepts of climate change or biodiversity loss, grounding understanding in tangible experiences and fostering a generation that is not only informed but also passionately engaged in stewarding the earth. By drawing wisdom from these ancient teaching practices, we have the opportunity to enrich the future of learning, creating educational systems that are more engaging, more holistic, and ultimately, more resonant with the deepest aspects of human experience. We've journeyed through the intricate and often invisible tapestry of the lost art of teaching without words, education in pre-written cultures, uncovering a world where knowledge was a living, breathing entity, passed down with profound ingenuity and communal dedication. From silent observation and hands-on apprenticeship to the vibrant power of storytelling and ritual, these ancient methods forged resilient, adaptable, and deeply connected societies. This exploration not only enriches our understanding of human history, but also offers invaluable insights into the very essence of learning. What if true education isn't just about what we know, but how we come to know it, integrating mind, body, and spirit in a holistic dance of discovery? Share your thoughts on these forgotten ways of teaching below, and remember to subscribe for more journeys into the untold stories of our